Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Louise Griffith. We'll be discussing her fantastic book, You Are Worth It, 52 Weeks to Honoring, Loving, and Nurturing Your Soul. Available for purchase through Amazon.com, but if you guys want to gather everything that she has to offer, do yourself a favor and head directly to her personal site, oneshininglight.com. There, not only will you be able to find more information on Louise herself, you'll find more information on this fantastic narrative, as well as find hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing page. So one more time, that's oneshininglight.com. And I will say that she was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best movers in the business. Author Reputation Press Publishing. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, make sure you're doing yourself a favor and you're contacting our great friends over at ARP. And you can find out more information on them at authorreputationpress.com. And guys, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Louise here on the line. The moment you go to her Amazon page, you go to oneshininglight.com, you start to do any research on the book, you instantly understand what we're going to be discussing today. And also, right there in the title, guys, listen, we're not beating around the bush, okay? It's hitting it right there on the nose. It's a self-help memoir that's set to take place over 52 weeks. So it's set to take place over one transformative year. And I absolutely love it. Guys, let's just call a spade a spade. Could we have asked for a better timing for a book of this magnitude to come out? Now, I don't know about you, but given the past year and a half to 25 years, it seems like now by this point, with this pandemic and the variations of lockdown that we've all experienced and the turbulence in the air, guys, a book of this magnitude is absolutely what we need right now. Now, granted, it might not be how to deal with the pandemic, but it's all about making yourself better. It's all about believing in yourself, knowing that you are worth it. I absolutely love it. Listen, Louise is the expert, okay? She's written the book, she's done the research, and she's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Louise, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, listen, we're very much looking forward to this. And listen, as I stated, a book of this magnitude is great for any time of the day, but especially right now, given the obstacles and the adversity that we've all faced. This is such a wonderfully timed book, and we're really looking forward to stealing all the words of wisdom that you're going to be able to relay to us today. But before we go into the book, Louise, let's hold off slightly. Start by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself and your background, please.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. I'm a former classroom teacher and then worked as a licensed psychologist for over 28 years in private practice. I'm a licensed success coach and internationally recognized professional speaker.
There you have it. Louise, first and foremost, my listening audience knows this already. I've articulated it on other occasions. But let me just be the first person to tell you here on our network, thank you for all of the work that you did as an educator, helping shape and develop the minds of future generations. I had a very brief stint in education myself. I taught for about 4 years. My significant other now is a high school teacher, and she's taught for the past 15 years. And we know as educators, first and foremost, educators never get the amount of credit that they deserve for the work that they put forth. And also, you may be a history teacher or a math teacher, science teacher, so on and so forth. But we know as an educator, you wear multiple hats, right? Some days you're a history teacher, other days you're a therapist, other days you're a referee, and some days you're a friend, and so on and so forth. So educators, again, are so incredibly invaluable to our society. And again, they never get the amount of credit that they deserve. So thank you very much for all the work that you put forth.
You're welcome, and I totally agree with you.
Now, Louise, without further ado, you are worth it. 52 weeks to honoring, loving, and nurturing your soul. Tell us a little bit more about your book.
So I'd like to tell you how I came up with the title, if I may.
Please.
And some of the women listening will relate to, I was attending a women's exercise group called Curves. And you go around in a circle and do exercises and so on and so forth on machines. And the woman to my left told me that she had lost 65 pounds so far that year. And being curious, I asked her how that happened at this time in her life. And she said, when I woke up one morning, I just decided I was worth it. And that stayed with me for days. Because if you don't think you're worth it, I don't think I'm worth it, we don't think we're worth it. Whatever it may be may not happen. And for her, it was losing weight. And each of us has our own it. And so that began the process of the book.
Now let's go a little bit more in depth with the narrative itself. So it's 52 weeks. Is this a step-by-step guide, a self-help memoir? I mean, talk to us a little bit more about how the book is configured.
Well, there are 52 different weeks, and each one has a different theme. An example would be week number 9, Reclaim Your Personal Power. And there are only like 2 pages of things that I've written, and each one ends with I am worth it, next steps. An example being, when you hear the term personal power, what does it bring up for you? In order to claim your full power, what do you choose to leave behind? Anyway, there aren't any right or wrong answers. And I think when I first did this with someone else, I realized when I was a younger person, I would have said I gave away my personal power. Now, being older, when I hear those 2 words, I go, yay. That reminds me that I have choices. So what I found is that this book is relevant for people of different ages. Women tend to do more reading of it, although there is a man in Australia apparently who does a men's group around it, and coaches in the UK and Ireland are using it as part of their process. And then there's 3 parts. I will stop, I will start, I will continue. And then it ends with you are worth it.
Louise, I want to go into the concept of inspiration now. Now, a multi-part question here. But first and foremost, what inspired you to embark upon this journey and write the narrative? Now, we know where the title came from, but why did you feel that this was a book that needed to be put out for the public to partake in as well?
Well, thank you for asking that. I had a business coach who said, you know what, it's time for you to write a book. And I'm like, what the heck? And my speaking title at that time was, Are You Willing to Be Worth It? And I said, well, what would the title be? And he said, well, that's what you're passionate about speaking about. And so I began then with mind maps. And I thought, as a person and as a psychologist working with people for many years, 28, I thought, what are some of the concepts, topics that people really care about and are passionate about? And so that's how the weeks came to be. I thought maybe I might finish it, or he thought maybe I'd finish it in 9 weeks. It took me a year, but it actually took me a lifetime, so if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, again, sticking with the concept of inspiration, going a little further down that rabbit hole and a little further away from your book, in terms of just writing in general, Louise, was this something that you always had a passion for, always found as a hobby of yours? Were there other writers that inspired you? Talk to us about really what inspired you to embark upon a creative journey and even become a writer.
Well, I've written things for different people's books and so forth and articles, and I've been inspired by many writers, many of them. And so it's just sort of all fell together in the timing. And once I began, I just kept going. And some days I wouldn't have anything to say. So I just would not write that day, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Again, Here in the line with Louise Griffith. We're discussing her fantastic book, You Are Worth It, 52 Weeks to Honoring, Loving, and Nurturing Your Soul. Available for purchase through Amazon as well as her personal site, oneshininglight.com. You know, Louise, next question that I'd love to get into, and my listening audience is going to get very upset if I don't hurry up and ask, okay? Now, we know that your book is a self-help narrative. Now, you started to go into it in a little bit more detail a little while ago, and I think you brought up week number 9 or maybe 6. And you went into a little bit more detail with that, but I'd love to take an opportunity, Louise. Talk to us about one of those other weeks and go in a little bit more detail with it so we know what to expect and how that is set up. So this way we have a little bit more of a teaser for when we pick up the book.
Thank you for asking. I'm looking at week 28, Set Clear Boundaries. And in my experience as a coach and psychologist, this is one of the most universal issues that, especially women, I know women mostly in this area, that it just gets in their way about not saying no when actually, if they'd listen to their internal dialogue, it would be screaming no. They say yes. And also then feel angry afterwards for having said yes, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But really saying no can be one of the most honoring things you can do for yourself. And you might disappoint the person making the request, but I say this, and I mean this with passion. If you don't honor your own soul, who will?
Absolutely.
If you don't honor your own soul, who will? And I have a coaching client who used to say yes to everything, and she began to set boundaries. And, oh my goodness, what has happened is that she is now taking better care of herself. She's using some of the energy to do things for herself, to say yes to herself. And she still says yes to others on occasion. But she was totally saying yes to everything and burned out.
Mm-hmm. You know, Louise, I'm curious, in addition to your personal life experience that you incorporated into this book, what type of research did you do in preparation for it?
Oh, I read different books that I thought would be relevant for or helpful to some of the topics I'd chosen to see what their thoughts were on it. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at I have books everywhere. I'm looking at my bookshelves. I have a lot of people I respect and I've read.
Wonderful. And what would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't expecting prior to embarking upon this journey?
That's a very interesting question. What surprised me and pleased me when all was ended, when I finished it, is that I felt really proud that actually it had the potential to add value to people's lives. And grateful, and it just, I remember when it was delivered, my first copy, tears came to my eyes because I think it's a beautiful book. Wow. And inside are things that can be helpful. It's not like I'm against therapy. Hello, I did that for 28 years. But if someone really sticks with the process, they can gain great insight into themselves and next steps for themselves, which delights me.
You know, Louise, as we tie out of this fantastic interview, last couple of questions here. Self-help narratives are really common. I mean, you are by no means the first author to have written a book of this
totally.
Of this magnitude, right? And by no means will you be the last. But I'm curious, Louise, in your opinion, what would you say separates your book from others in its category?
Well, I like that each week is short. That's doable, and I recommend that people do 1 week at a time, and they don't have to go in order. I'm doing a couple coaching groups around using my book, and we have different weeks. And then as a part I will stop, I'll continue and about moving forward. So I like it that each section is very short and that the I Am Worth It next steps can take a person deeper into their own life. Because I could tell you that you are worth it, right? But when you actually decide yourself that you are and you have great worth and value, it makes a difference. Absolutely. Not only in your lives, but I think you sort of call that forth from others.
Absolutely.
And you end up with more clarity, courage, and confidence.
You know, Louise, as we close out here, last question. I love having this platform, to be able to pay it forward. I'm an artist myself. I'm in a different medium, but I love having this platform to be able to pay it forward to other artists out there listening in. Now, in this instance, other writers out there listening in. Now, you are someone, as you stated, you have written things in other people's books. You've published your own book. I'd love to take this opportunity to steal any words of wisdom, to any new writers out there listening in. What are some words that you would be able to relate to them?
I think that everyone has a valuable story. They have sort of like a soul's purpose. And to spend some time checking in with themselves to see what they're passionate about and what do they think is important. And they are maybe the one person in the world who can really put that into words that others will read and benefit from. So to say right away, I'm not a writer, I don't agree with that. Maybe that's not what you intend to do, but don't say you're not a writer because you have great wisdom.
I love it. And listen, in true fashion, the words of wisdom for other writers out there is pretty similar to the underlying message for her book. At the end of the day, it's all about perception. You are worth it. Have confidence in yourself and execute the plan. I absolutely love it. Guys, you know what I love even more? Listen, we're at the end of the interview now. We've covered so much information, and yet we've barely scratched the surface. There's still so much left to be discovered. Listen, we only covered 2 weeks. All right, there's another 50. Go out and pick it up. Make sure that you're doing everything that you can to prove and really show to yourself that you are worth it. Guys, imagine the world that we would live in when we all grow, we develop, we educate ourselves, and we have that self-worth. Oh, what a beautiful thing. What an absolutely beautiful thing. I'm going to say it one more time, even though I know I don't have to. Here on the line with Louise Griffith. We just finished discussing her wonderful book, You Are Worth It, 52 Weeks to Honoring, Loving, and Nurturing Your Soul, available for purchase through Amazon.com or her personal website, oneshininglight.com. You surely will not be disappointed. A wonderful gift for yourself and an even better gift for someone else. So head on over there and pick up your copies today. Louise, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you once again for being a guest with us today on People of Distinction.
Thank you, Benji.